Is anybody here on a first date? Well, I never in my wildest dreams thought I would be able to meet you, Monika, honestly, and like have the chance to talk to you about editing. So I just want to say thank you again for coming all the way over here to New York. It's really special.
Thanks for the invitation.
And thank you again to the Metrograph and to ACE. This series means so much to our editing community, our film-loving community. And yeah, so I hadn't seen this film in a while. I saw it when it came out, and I've seen it at least once since then. And then I watched it, obviously, in preparation for this. And I know you hadn't seen it in a while either. I was wondering, when you rewatched it, was there anything that kind of, you know, surprised you or that came up for you as you were watching it after knowing it so well? I mean, obviously with editing, you know, you see all the footage inside and out over and over again. It can be a very long process. Although I read somewhere that it was a shockingly short actual editing period for this film.
I call it now always Michael Haneke, although it's Michael Haneke, but we are used to spell our names in English. It's always a shockingly short period of editing, except for the white ribbon. Because yes, it's well prepared, it's very precisely shot. These are not films where you invent the film newly and change scene 70 to scene 30. It's more about, well, it's about editing, of course, and what we change are to leave things out which are bad, because this is the credo of Michael: everything which is bad has to go out, which made it with this film very hard in one scene, because it broke a principle that over the years he really established as one of his principles, meaning that every scene is real time and there have to be no time ellipses in one scene. Not that this is something he's, you know, talking about a lot, but it's obvious. And when I rewatched the film today, actually, it's always the same. You're so long in this process, and the editing period is short, but post-production period is very long, and I'm always part of the post-production because I'm a control freak and because he trusts me. So I'm taking over a lot of things, and I'm very interested in sound, and so it's a few months of editing, and then it's like with Amour not that long, with Happy End I think it was a year of post-production, post-production after editing. And it's the personal things that you remember when you're watching the film, and it's hard to really watch it without remembering all those private moments or the professional moments, yeah.
Yeah. And I know you said in the intro this was your 5th film working together. Is there anything that you do to prepare for a film? Now, you know, I know there's other directors obviously you've worked with, and some of them you've also worked with many times. But let's speak of Haneke for now. Do you've worked with him a lot. You have some process, some system, I suppose. What do you do to prepare? You know, when you know, okay, I'm going to start this job, this new film. Is there anything that you do, knowing that on one hand it's familiar, on the other hand each film is new and different?
The longer you work together with the director, and I'm lucky to work continuously with several directors, the more you get involved earlier in stages, meaning to get to read the scenario, being asked for feedback, and of course I watch the dailies with Michael. It's so that he would never want to watch an assembly that I do, but I do it then anyway, and I know the material when we start with scene 1, and also I start to prepare. The longer we work together, the more I prepare sounds, because this is incredibly important with his collaboration.
Hmm. And you have a background in sound editing even before picture sound, is that correct? Or
Yes, I did for I think the first 3 or 4 feature films I edited. I also did the sound editing, but I stopped it because you end up making 1 film maximum, and I really like to do it, but this is such a incredible work that I stopped at a certain moment. But I always tend or ask to work with sound editors, and especially with composers during the editing process already, because sound makes everything better, but bad sound can ruin so many things. And I very much insist on being part of the mixing, because sound editors and everyone who is part of a team wants to bring in his or her work to the maximum, and you have to be careful.
yeah. And can you speak a little bit about the collaboration with Nadine, who I think you worked with a few
Nadine is
times?
always listed on the title montage or edit, because for Michael, sound is so essential that he says montage is picture and sound, and therefore we are always credited under one credit. But she's the sound editor, and I'm the picture. Yeah.
And like you said, you bring so much of the sound work into the picture edit.
Like with this film, the first 2.5 days were only to work on scene number 1, because it's this oneer with the dolly, and you had all the steps, and of course you had no noise outside coming from the street, and so we only worked on the sound for this one.
Yeah, that's it's an incredible opening to the film, and I was just watching from the back just that first shot, and even though I know what it is, I know what that first shot is, but still when it comes on, it's like it really hit me right in the heart, and I just thought, wow, like what a way to start a love story, breaking down the door. And of course, since I had watched him recently, watching the first shot again, I was really struck by how every part of the story is there in that. And if the apartment, of course, which is so central to the filmmaking, but to the story of this couple, you're in this very specific moment in their life, and their world, their whole life, you see in the books on the shelves, the art, the stains on the wall, and how it changes over as the medical equipment comes in, and I don't know, it's really remarkable. But I noticed even, the open window, and which I didn't think about when I first watched the film, because you don't obviously know what's coming. But that kind of storytelling is so powerful. So something like that, which is one shot, and he's known for these long takes, and I'm wondering, because in editing, there's so much about performance, and here you have 2 of the greatest actors, well, 3, but the 2 main roles, how are you looking at performance when you're not going to be necessarily taking like this part from this take and this part from that take?
So in the course of our collaboration, this developed into a sport. With the first film I worked on with Michael, the piano teacher. Of course, it was big Michael Haneke, and so I was not very known in the feature film editing community. It was more like we watched the takes, and he said this and that, and I gave my opinion, and he said, "What do you think?" And the longer we worked together, it developed who is the first one to say which take is the best. So it's always, I don't know, let's say this first one, 12 takes, and then we select 3, 5, and 7, and then we say it's 7, but, and that's the huge thing, this sentence from 3 is good, this syllable from 12 is best, this thing from there, and we do it all in the process. So we make notes for every bits and pieces. I mean, I'm so happy about scripting because this is making our life, you know, this is, I love
love it.
scripting. So I never had the pleasure to work on scripting with Michael, but that would be great. So at that time we had pages of notes, which expression one, and then we changed. So it's first then to select the best performance, but also from the camera, and then changing all the bits and pieces that we need from the performances.
Wow. And do you ever go back after you've done a pass and you have the whole film and you watch it? Do you ever go back and think, oh, I thought that was the best take, but now I see the scene actually needs something different, or is it usually
With every other director, yes. With Michael, it's so that he never leaves something where we say, okay, let's keep it as it is for now, and we come back to that. So we work as long on the scene until it's the way he loves it. But of course, when we have screenings and see, no, this doesn't work so well together with something else, then we go back. But it's rare. Because I made for one seminar I had one time, I really compared the first cut with the last cut, and it's compared to other films, it's just amazing how much it stays that way.
Yeah. That kind of goes into my next question, which I'm wondering how much, if at all, you refer to the script after once you're in the process of editing. Do you go back and look at the script at all, or is what you're editing, you just know it's going to be exactly as it's written? Do you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, going back to the script is if it's shot in because it's shot in French, and I speak my French is pretty well or good enough for editing a film, which is pretty much the script. But no, it's then what we work on, or what I work on, is the material.
And you've worked in several languages. Do you find that do you have a different approach when you're cutting a performance in a language that's not your first language? I mean, you understand the words, but does it affect you in your way of working with material at all?
I mean, it's always the question: am I legitimate to edit a film in another language? I think for English and French it's okay. Whereas, as we talked, I could not edit the film which plays in the suburbs of Marseille and where there are riots and stuff like that, because I wouldn't understand it. I would need it subtitled. But I did a lot of documentaries which have been shot all over the world. I did a Hong Kong film in Cantonese, which has been subtitled. And I think the longer you work, the experience is big enough to be able to judge on a performance with the help of a director and with the help of people, because especially with this Hong Kong film, it was really sometimes difficult to judge on the let's say on the drama, or sometimes that seemed to be pathetic, which isn't then, or on so of course you need help then, but you have to dive into it, and then you get a feeling for the language. I mean, this is something we have to have anyway, because else we couldn't do the job.
Yeah. Another thing I was thinking about that I wanted to ask was there's so much, of course, in their relationship with each other and their life story, and it's very powerful, very beautiful, brutal but beautiful, in terms of the minutia of their daily experience in this, like you said, the real time aspect of it, even though time passes in between the cuts. But I was really struck also by the aspect of the sort of bigger universal aspect of what, of a whole life. And for me, it's really very much in the idea of the music, her music career. And, in the moment when, I know I did notice in this first shot, you actually do see the piano in the living room, but I kind of forget, because that moment when he's imagining her playing, it's like, my heart just opens up. And I think, and it's like, how did I not know there was a grand piano in this living room the whole time? I've been in this apartment the whole time. And maybe I knew but then there's something about that wide shot there that's so, and then of course going back, and then the CD it's really breathtaking. And then, and her student, who, how do you think about bringing in other aspects of a character's experience? Are you looking at, how they are the frames are so deliberate, but when you're trying to think of how to say this question that I'm forming as I'm thinking it, but the tableau of the rooms, is there much experimentation with that, like within the very precise way that you work, or that the two of you work together? Do you ever say, let's just try skipping this part, or let's work backwards, or?
Yes, of course. I mean, obviously, there are not so many, so they didn't shoot this scene when she's playing, although, so when he's imagining her playing, it's all about the pacing, it's all about the time. It's as said, it's about leaving out stuff which is not good, and it's about those very, very precise moments where you start and end. I mean, it is a matter, of course, you can change the end of this music. You don't have, let's say, 3 seconds to select when to end it, but these are those precise works, which is really beautiful work, to decide when exactly, at which note, at which half note does something end.
Were there any scenes, like whole scenes or moments, that are just not in here at all?
Yes, Isabelle Berg is fabulous she can start to cry in the moment. She doesn't have to blink her eye. She can produce tears without blinking, and she doesn't need drops and everything. It's sometimes difficult when she, like with many actors, really many actresses or actors, to cry or scream with guttural voices, with the voice. And there was a scene where she was at the mother at the second time, and then there was a shot when she was coming to the living room and then entering the living room, and the way she did from the room of the mother, the sleeping room, to the living room, was one of those scenes, and Michael was really unhappy, but he said, no, we can't cut it out. And they said, of course we can cut it out, we just cut from there to there. And he said no, because this is breaking the rule, and he said we can. And then the trick was to say, we have to separate the film in reels, and I just created a reel there, and so we avoided this discussion until the end of the film, and it was that.
You have your sneaky ways. All editors do. We have a few more minutes left. I'm wondering if anyone in the audience has any questions.
I was really curious about the scene with all the paintings and how that came about, if that was something planned before, or if it came about in the post-production process, and also where you decided to put it in the film, because it feels like we're going somewhere, somewhere new, but we haven't arrived yet at the death. But tonally, it feels like we're really getting to that point. And so I was wondering what your approach was to decide where to put that within the sequence of the film, and where your intuition led you in that moment.
Yeah, those shots of the empty apartment and also the paintings, they really have been shots where to decide where to put. And it is a breaking moment. It is one of those moments where big things are happening and where you indicate a kind of a time ellipse where her status is getting worse, and where it's, let's say, something like looking back at the life, or seeing also the richness of the life, like with the photo album. So to get the feeling of what it was, but also I think for me it's a big moment of expressing a longing, and knowing at a certain age, or this couple that knows that there's not much time left for longing, and it's all going to an end. I'm getting very emotional now, because I rewatched the film today, and I was lucky enough to accompany both my parents in the dying process, and I remember it got clear to me. Both my parents died after making these films. How deep of an insight Michael has or had about this process and about saying goodbye. And I mean, this is a very personal story for him. The ground floor of the apartment of the set is exactly the ground floor of his mother's apartment, and it had to be precisely like this, except that it is in Paris and not in Munich where it was. So or in Vienna. This was the Viennese one, and this is I think his strength, that, and he allows himself only to tell stories about things that he knows. And here you feel really, and once you've experienced it yourself, you feel that he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, and just the universal humanity of, I mean, all life leads to death. but it's
getting old is nothing for cowards.
That's right. But it's also nothing to look away from. I mean, I think we were talking earlier about the deep, how difficult some of the subject matters are, and hard to watch, and challenging, but so important to find the high level of artistic expression for these aspects of human life, as well as everything else. I don't want to take too much time away from other audience questions by rambling on about life.
Time for one more.
It would be great if you could elaborate more on working with a director like Monika, who comes into each film basically like knowing how the film is going to look in the edit. One thing that was really striking to me watching, this is the first time that I've seen this film, and the first opening couple shots, our introduction into the world, is just like these really long static shots. I mean, well, not static compared to the first shot, but like a lot of these shots that didn't have a lot of editing. And then the first time that you introduced the 180-degree whirl, when you do a shot reverse shot, is when the two people are looking at each other in bed in the complete darkness. So knowing that the film is going to, knowing that you don't necessarily have quote unquote like limited resources in terms of coverage coming into an edit, like what is your kind of jump in point into knowing when to go into a reaction shot in compared to just letting the master shot kind of just do its work, especially since you're working with a director like Monika, and then you have all of these amazing actors just doing what they do best.
Did I understand you right? So you want to know when I'm going, okay. I'm always driven by my own interest. So I think editing those scenes and looking at are the most physical one. I think editing is a very physical job because you have to feel and go with the material all day long. You have to feel it and feel it and feel it and never close down and never be just purely, the technique is something that should just work around. So it is the interest. What is the most important in this moment? Is it the one who is I don't know if I understood your question right. Is it the moment someone is listening? Is it the moment someone is speaking? Is it the whole thing I want to see? Whereas the master shot is whenever you have both the close-ups. It's rarely super valuable, or you can use it only once. So I never like to go back to master shots once you're in a dialogue. But it's so difficult to explain people how to, editing or cutting dialogue or an interaction between two or more people. It's this what we editors so often answer. It's the feeling, but the feeling, I must say, after years of saying, yeah, it's just to get the feeling and the guts, it's a kind of experience to get to know what is more tension and what is more precious.
That's all the time we have. Thank you all so much for coming. Thank you, Monika.